Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. For more than a century, East Tennessee's biggest and best contractors have trusted A.G. Hines Company to provide top quality building materials at more than fair prices. You can too. For your next home improvement project, start things off with a visit to A.G. Hines Company in downtown Knoxville. They are fantastic. That's how you hang around for 101 years, which is what they're celebrating this year. A.G. Hines Company. All right, let's welcome in the next member of our panel today, who surprised me by bringing in fresh homemade beignets. We got Vince Ferrari down, who I didn't realize you spent a year or two down in New Orleans early in your career.
First radio job in New Orleans as a young guy out of college. Pretty fun times.
Yeah, that wouldn't suck. No. So we've got sweet and savory. Well, everyone will have a choice later in the show: beignets or bugs. One or the other. We got Bob. Vince was cooking this morning. You were out early this morning digging in your grass to pick up bugs to fry. All right, let's take a look at some transfer facts right here. Just putting this on top of what we talked about in the last segment. 138 players have already left SEC schools. 138. 72 more are still in the portal, so you could lose about 200 players this year. 71 of the guys who've already moved have jumped to non-Power 5 schools. 67 have moved from the SEC to other Power 5 schools, including 11 that have moved within the SEC. Arkansas, Florida, and Tennessee have each grabbed 2 each. Before I put up the next graphic, just hold right there. Let me ask you guys, do you want to guess? And if you know the answer, don't guess. Does anybody want to guess what school has grabbed the most SEC players this offseason?
Two would come to mind, either Liberty or South Alabama.
Okay. Ryan, you want to?
I don't have a great guess on that right now.
Bob?
I know the answer.
Okay, then you can't. Let's go ahead and put it up here. Jackson State, Deion Sanders has grabbed 6 players from the SEC. He's recruiting now to where they've got a couple of 4-stars on the list at Jackson State. You can't tell me that didn't influence Tennessee State hiring Eddie George, because that's pretty impressive. If these guys live up to the talent they had at Jackson State, it'll be interesting to see if they ever get drafted, because last year there were 0 draft picks from the historically black colleges, which was not a great look. So it'll be interesting to see. Florida State grabbed 5. Georgia Tech, Memphis, Michigan State, Oklahoma, SMU all grabbed 4. Purdue, New Mexico, South Alabama, Southern Miss, USF, and Virginia Tech have grabbed 3 each. All right, here's my question. 11 transfers inside the league. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, that the SEC surely can't sit behind. They've got half the league doesn't want to allow internal transfers. They want you to have to sit. They don't want you to be able to play immediately if you go inside the league. The other half is for it. The fact that 11 of these guys have moved and schools have taken them, doesn't that tell you that while there may be half the schools that don't want to do it, they're going to do it?
Yeah,
I think so. Some of those might be grad transfers like Javonte Payton, but Tennessee just recently took Kamal Haddon, the former Auburn cornerback, who has only just arrived in January, went through spring practice and left. I don't think you're taking a guy like that unless you feel pretty good that's going to pass. So same thing with Henry To'oTo'o. You wouldn't do it if there was that much risk involved.
Yeah, and it's not just that the schools are making those decisions to take those players right now before the SEC's ruled on it. It's that the players are making those decisions. So they've gotten an indication, you would think, that this is going to get passed and they're going to be able to play right away. So I think the SEC can't afford to lose their players to other conferences. So in the end, I do think the SEC will make that decision.
The NCAA, as everyone knows, allowed everyone struck by COVID or actually impacted by COVID, so anybody playing right now gets an extra year tacked on. That has meant roster expansion. That means that somebody who thought he was going to start this year may have a senior that they thought was leaving who's coming back, going to play in front of them, so I may go to play somewhere else. Once we get past the COVID years here and those guys who have an extra year are gone, do we think this slows down at all? How much of an impact on this transfer numbers is that having, or any?
I think it's going to have maybe up, not 50%, but a reasonably high number, maybe 30%. So I think it will slow down quite a bit. And I think then when you see it pop back up again is when a school goes through what Tennessee has gone through with all the reported shenanigans and possibility of penalties out there. I think then when you see this again in the future at someplace else, then you'll see that school kind of kind of have a mushroom cloud over it like Tennessee has.
Agree or disagree? You think the COVID slows it down or sped it up, or do you think it
I think
stays
it's
like this?
I think it's added to it a little bit. I don't know that the long term, next 2 or 3 years are going to be much more of the same, but I do think what we're going to see is the numbers maybe higher these first few years because of the feeling out process of how this is going to work. Too many players, I think, will enter the portal thinking there's a home for all of them, and they'll get in there and be disappointed by their options. We've already seen some of that. I think once now that the one-time transfer exception has been passed, I think some players will do that, mistakenly think they're going to go to big schools, and then the numbers will probably go back down after a few years.
Vince, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say I agree. I think there'll be the short-term spike, and then there will be a leveling off. And I hope that someone will do a story and pass the numbers along to the guys, to the players that are thinking about transferring, and showing that, look, you may think you automatically have a new landing spot, but look at all these people that don't. And that those unfortunate numbers need to be shared with those players so they don't think automatically they have a great place to be.
They won't hear it, though.
No, it's like guys
the
leaving
NFL
early
draft.
for the NFL draft. I mean, you're going to be a 6th-round draft pick, maybe an undrafted free agent. Okay, fine. No, you're wrong.
Well, and you've got guys who are told you're not going to be drafted, and they still go and think, yeah, I will.
Right.
Because all it takes, when you hear what you want to hear, you believe it. So you'd have 10 guys, I think. I think you're right. It'd be great if they did this, and I think probably coaches will tell them that. But if you have 10 guys telling you you're not going to find a landing spot, and one guy says, yeah, you will, get out there. Yeah, I'm listening to him. I think he's right. I'm going to go. So I do think it is necessary to get the word out, but they've gotten the word out with the NFL. How do these kids not know that just declaring you can go doesn't mean you're going to get drafted? They know it, but they go anyway, is the fear.
On the plus side, though, entering the portal is not a final decision. So you can always enter, look around. When you see nothing's out there, come back. We've seen that with Karat Garland at Tennessee, so it does happen sometimes, but it is relatively rare.
Austin Pope.
Austin
Yeah.
Pope.
So you've got 72 guys right now in the SEC that are in the portal and could turn around and go back, but those are I wouldn't think all 72 will. All right.
Can I ask a quick question?
Very quick.
Do you have to bring a player back out of the portal? Say it's Tennessee guy, I'm in, I don't like it, I'm coming back. No, you're not. We're done with you.
It hasn't been really tested by anybody, but yeah, I think that's something that people worry about at least a little bit. I wonder if now with the transfer exception being passed, do you have to make all scholarships 4-year guarantees for schools? Because that's the thing people have always worried about is coaches pushing players out.
Right.
Do you give them a guarantee now that with the transfer portal, no one can be pushed out the door?
Which should have been the deal. Now, the downside is you'd have people say, well, some kids would come and just take advantage. They'd eat donuts all day and they wouldn't be. That would be the rare exception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that should have been the case long ago. You put your pen to paper, you're 4 years.
Yeah.
You're
Agreed.
covered. So, all right. When we come back, 247.com, who Ryan works for, ranked the top 100 players in the portal. A lot of guys from Tennessee out, a couple guys in. We'll show you where they ranked. We'll also talk about the fact that Ryan's company doesn't think much of Tennessee's transfer quarterbacks. We'll let him explain. Come on back on the Sports Source.